She didn't slam a door. She didn't send a long message. She didn't cry in the kitchen or give him an ultimatum. She just stopped. Stopped reaching first. Stopped filling the silence with laughter. Stopped translating his bad moods into reasons to try harder. And 3 weeks later, she was gone. Not dramatically, quietly. The way a candle goes out when no one is watching. He told people he never saw it coming. But the truth was that he saw every sign. He just didn't believe they were serious. What happened to her is not rare. It happens in thousands of relationships every single day. And the people left behind almost always say the same thing. She just changed. She just gave up. She just decided to leave. But that's not what happened. And today I'm going to show you exactly what did. Because understanding this process, truly understanding it, has the power to save something you might not even know you're currently losing. Stay with me.
Because what I'm about to explain will change how you read every close relationship in your life. There is a specific type of person in the world who feels things at a frequency that most people don't have access to. Not emotionally unstable, not dramatic, not weak, perceptually advanced. These are people whose nervous systems are calibrated more finely than average. Neurologically, they process sensory and emotional data more deeply. The technical term researchers use is sensory processing sensitivity, and studies suggest roughly 20% of the population carries this trait. These are people who feel the shift in a room before anyone speaks, who know when something is wrong before the words arrive, who sense the gap between what someone says and what someone means. I'm not going to call them empaths because that word has become so loaded it stops people from seeing the actual science underneath it. I'm going to call them what they actually are: high-resolution people. And when you lose one, you don't just lose a partner or a friend, you lose something that most people spend the rest of their lives trying to find again. Here's what you need to understand about how they operate before we get into how they leave. High-resolution people don't experience relationships the way most people do. For the average person, a relationship is largely about what is said and done, the surface layer. For a high-resolution person, the surface layer is almost irrelevant compared to what sits underneath it. They are reading your nervous system, your micro-expressions, the way your energy shifts when a certain topic comes up, the tone that changes by 3 degrees when you're lying, even to yourself. They don't choose to do this, it is automatic. Their perceptual system is always on, always scanning, always processing. And this means something critical for how you treat them. They will know things about you that you haven't said out loud. They will feel things you think you're hiding. And every single inconsistency, every moment where your actions and your words don't line up, gets logged. Not consciously cataloged in some vindictive way, automatically processed by a nervous system that cannot do anything other than notice. This is important because most people assume that if they don't say something, it doesn't exist in the relationship. With a high-resolution person, that assumption will destroy you. Now here's where the story usually begins. The first phase is what I call the translation phase, and it is both beautiful and heartbreaking. When a high-resolution person senses something wrong, something inconsistent, something that doesn't match the words they're being given, their first instinct is not to confront. It is to understand. They turn their perceptual system on the problem, and they begin trying to translate it. Why is he acting this way? What happened to her this week that might be causing this? Is there something I'm missing about this situation? They are not making excuses for you. They are doing something more sophisticated than that. They are looking for the full picture because they know people are complicated, and they believe, deeply, that understanding is the bridge between two people. So they try harder. They initiate deeper conversations. They create more space for you to share what's really going on. They soften their edges so you feel safe enough to be honest. They absorb your friction without complaint because they believe this is what love requires when someone is struggling. And here's the tragedy of this phase. It looks from the outside like everything is fine. Better than fine, maybe. You are being met with patience, with warmth, with understanding. And if you are not paying close attention, you will mistake their effort for evidence that nothing needs to change. That is the mistake that begins the clock. Because underneath all of that grace, something else is happening. The high-resolution person is watching whether you meet them, whether you notice their effort, whether you ask about them the way they ask about you. whether the care moves in both directions. They are not keeping score in the petty sense, but their nervous system is recording data, and the data is building a picture. And if that picture starts showing a pattern, that the effort only moves one direction, that the care is not returned, that the understanding they offer never comes back around, the translation phase ends, and the next phase begins. I need you to pay very close attention here because this is the phase that most people mistake for progress. I call it the quiet audit. When a high-resolution person enters the quiet audit, everything on the surface looks calmer. The arguments decrease. The heavy conversations stop. They seem more settled, more okay, more at peace. And if you have been conflict-averse or exhausted by the earlier tension, this will feel like relief. It is not relief. It is the most significant warning sign in the entire arc of losing someone like this. What has actually happened is that the high-resolution person has stopped investing in the outcome. They have withdrawn from the work of repair not because they've given up on you, but because they have shifted their question. They are no longer asking, "How do I fix this?" They are asking, "Who are you when I stop trying?" They go quiet because they need clean data. And they cannot get clean data while they are still supplying the energy that makes the relationship function. So they pull back. They stop initiating. They stop providing the emotional infrastructure. They stop translating your moods into opportunities for connection. And they watch. They watch to see if you notice the absence of their effort. They watch to see if you step into the gap or wait for them to fill it. They watch to see if you are capable of showing up without being prompted, without being pulled, without being carried. Most people fail this audit without ever knowing they're taking it. They interpret the quiet as things being better. They relax. They invest less. They assume that whatever was wrong has resolved. And in doing so, they provide the high-resolution person with the most clarifying data point of all. That the relationship only functions at the level the high-resolution person personally maintains it. That data point does not produce anger. It produces grief. And it produces clarity. Once that clarity arrives, something happens in the body that no amount of good intentions can undo. This is the part that most people never talk about, and it is the most important thing I am going to say today. High-resolution people do not just think their way through relationships. They feel them physiologically. Their nervous systems are not separate from their emotional conclusions. They are the mechanism through which emotional conclusions are reached. What this means in practice is that when a relationship becomes chronically unsafe, the body registers it before the mind makes the decision. And once the body registers it, the experience of that person changes at a biological level. It works like this. The nervous system operates in two primary states: safe, which is regulated and open, and threatened, which is defended and closed. High-resolution people, because they are more sensitive to emotional data, move between these states more readily than the average person. In a healthy connection, being around you pulls their system towards safety. Their body relaxes, their thinking opens, their generosity flows naturally because their nervous system is not consuming resources on defense. But in a relationship with chronic inconsistency, dismissal, or imbalance, the opposite conditioning forms. Their nervous system begins to associate your presence with the threatened state. Not because they decide to, because their body is a learning machine, and it has learned that you equal dysregulation. Once that association is formed, something profound and irreversible begins. Every text from you, every time they hear your car, every time they see your name, triggers a subtle threat response before a single thought is formed. Their chest tightens slightly, their stomach shifts, their body prepares for impact, and they cannot override this with logic. They cannot think their way back to safety. The conditioning is below conscious thought. It is in the body. When a high-resolution person reaches this point, the relationship is over. Not officially, not yet, but physiologically, it is already done. They are no longer trying to fix something. They are waiting for the moment it is safe enough to leave. Now, I want to come back to something because understanding this next part is what separates the people who never make this mistake again from the people who repeat it. The high-resolution person was not destroyed by one big thing. They were eroded by 1,000 small things. 1,000 moments where they reached and you didn't reach back. 1,000 moments where they named something real and you dismissed it as too much. 1,000 moments where they gave you access to the most sensitive parts of how they experience the world and you treated that access carelessly. Each moment was small. Individually, most of them were forgettable, but their nervous system forgot nothing. And the cumulative weight of those moments is what you are actually dealing with by the time the quiet audit begins. This is why the grand gesture almost never works at this stage. The high-resolution person is not operating from a list of grievances that can be addressed. They are operating from a body that has been trained, over time, to associate you with contraction rather than expansion. A bouquet of flowers or a heartfelt conversation does not retrain the nervous system. Time and consistency and behavioral change might, but only if the person still has access to enough safety to stay present while that retraining happens. And that window closes. It closes quietly, without announcement. And by the time most people realize it is closed, they are standing outside it. Here's what I want you to sit with now. If you are the kind of person who has lost someone like this, or who is beginning to feel the quiet audit settling in around you, I want to be honest with you about something. The instinct in this moment is to explain, to defend, to ask for one more chance, to make the case for why things can be different. And I understand that instinct. But I want you to hear this clearly. Words do not rebuild what erosion took apart. Emotional presence is different. Emotional presence is when you feel the emotional truth of what someone is experiencing. You let it matter to you, you let it land, and you remain yourself while it lands. You don't take it on, you don't carry it away. You witness it fully, and then you let it be theirs. This is extraordinarily difficult for someone whose nervous system defaults to absorption. It requires a kind of internal structure, a sense of your own emotional identity that is stable enough to be moved without being flooded. But it is the difference between giving someone genuine accompaniment and giving them the temporary comfort of being emotionally consumed by you. One of those helps people. The other trains people to see you as a place to deposit emotional weight. The third shift, and this is the hardest one, is learning to be seen before it's safe. Because here's the reality of vulnerability. It is never fully safe. The condition, safe enough to be truly vulnerable, does not exist as a fixed state you arrive at before you open the door. Safety and intimacy is built through the act of being vulnerable, not before it. You don't wait until you're sure about someone and then let them in. You let them in, carefully, incrementally, and their response to what you reveal is what builds the certainty. Highly perceptive people often have this backwards. They wait, they watch, they gather data, they assess safety with remarkable accuracy, and they wait so long that the window closes. Not because the person was unsafe, because human beings can only extend themselves towards someone who seems fundamentally unreachable for so long before they stop extending. Genuine accountability sounds different. It is specific. It is unguarded. It does not negotiate with impact by interrogating intent. It says the name of the specific thing that happened, acknowledges the specific way it landed, offers a real explanation without using the explanation as a defense, and delivers all of it without the implicit expectation that completing these steps means the situation is resolved. Because that expectation, the expectation of resolution after accountability, is itself a form of self-protection. It converts the moment of honesty into a transaction, and the person you're talking to will feel that conversion the moment it happens. What actually creates an opening in a person who processes people at this level is not a perfectly constructed apology. It is the feeling behind the imperfect one. The genuine discomfort of sitting in accountability without rushing to resolve it. The willingness to be in the uncertainty of not knowing whether the honesty will change anything. The absence of self-protection in the delivery. Their nervous system is calibrated for authenticity. It reads the difference between someone who is accountable and someone who is performing accountability with the same precision it detected the original inconsistency. You cannot fake your way through this. You can only be real through it. And real, to someone like this, will always be enough, even when it is not enough to restore what was lost. Because restoration, when it is possible at all, is not a single conversation. It is a new pattern demonstrated across enough time that it becomes the reference point instead of the old one. The old pattern said your words and your behavior were not always the same thing. The new pattern, to have any meaning, has to demonstrate the opposite, consistently, without being asked, across situations where the easier choice would have been to manage the story instead of tell it. That pattern takes months to build to the point where it carries real weight. And it only makes sense to build it if you are building it because you have changed, not because you want to recover the relationship. Because the first motivation produces consistent behavior regardless of outcome. The second motivation produces behavior that deteriorates the moment recovery seems unlikely. And a person who reads behavior for a living will know the difference before you do. The high-resolution person heard your words, all of them. For months, maybe years, your words were the thing they were trying to reconcile with your behavior. They are not confused about your words. They are exhausted by the distance between your words and your actions. Adding more words to that pile does not close the distance, it increases it. What they need, if there is still time, is behavioral evidence that is consistent, sustained, and not contingent on their reaction to it. Not a grand gesture, not a dramatic declaration. A quiet, daily, unremarkable pattern of showing up differently than you did before. Not because they are watching for it, they will be, but because if you are only doing it because they are watching, they will feel that too. And if you are the high-resolution person watching this, I want to say something directly to you. The exhaustion you feel is not a flaw. It is the result of an extended period of perceiving everything while being told to perceive less. Of knowing things accurately and being asked to doubt your knowing. Of giving the most careful, calibrated version of your care and having it taken for granted. Your nervous system is not broken. It is responding correctly to an environment that was not safe for it. And the peace you are craving? It is not the absence of relationship. It is the presence of a relationship where you do not have to perform a lower resolution of yourself to keep someone comfortable. That relationship exists, but you cannot find it while you are still in the one that is asking you to disappear. Let me bring this back to where we started. That woman who stopped, who went quiet, who walked away without a dramatic scene or a final speech. She did not give up. She did not change. She did not become cold or detached or cruel. She simply completed a calculation that had been running for a very long time. A calculation built not from conclusions she chose, but from data she could not stop receiving. And when the data finally became undeniable, her body made the decision before her mind caught up. He said he never saw it coming. But the truth is that he saw every moment that built it. He just decided each moment was small enough to ignore. The painful wisdom in all of this is the same truth that runs through every relationship that ends this way. It is never one thing. It is the accumulated weight of 1,000 small choices to look away when someone needed to be seen. And the people most capable of loving you deeply, most capable of perceiving you fully, most capable of holding space for everything you are also the people most capable of recognizing, with precision and without illusion, the moment you stopped choosing them. They will not make a scene about it. They will not punish you for it. They will simply, quietly, finally, choose themselves instead. And they will not look back. Not because they didn't love you, but because they already did all their grieving while you were still in the room. Don't be the person who only understands this after the door is closed. The door is open right now.